Hello, little loves. Welcome back to Bedtime with Mama. Tonight we are reading Chapter 14 of the Double Trouble Society. Chapter 14 is called Golden Words. 300 years she won't be seen. This is obvious. She was defeated by Amethyst 300 years ago and hasn't been seen, well, except for as a cat, until her return the other day. Ivy explained as they sat around eating their breakfast. Amethyst's magic was stronger now that she had rested, but it still wasn't as strong as the magic she'd accidentally given Maggie and Ivy. So she'd quickly taught them some simple spells, like how to brew tea, boil eggs, make rounds and rounds of toast, and squeeze orange juice, with or without bits. Oranges whizzed through the air, knives delicately slicing through them when they reached the chopping board, and then the two halves squeezed themselves into a big pitcher, which then poured the fresh juice into everyone's glass round the kitchen table. They even conjured up several different types of jam. Maggie and Ivy hadn't known how to make jam, but Amethyst taught them a simple multiplying spell. They took jam jars from Amethyst's cupboard that were half full and multiplied the contents until the jars were full to the brim with delicious raspberry, strawberry, and blackberry jam. Everyone was delighted. Even Jemima's eyes widened with glee at the spread set out before them, although she didn't manage to produce a thank you. Maggie and Ivy had slept soundly through the night despite the worries on their minds. They figured the flying and mind reading had worn them out. However, now they were awake, and the only thing they could think about was defeating the witch once and for all. But she'll return to claim 13. Again, obvious. She'd return not only to claim the 13th child to seal her deal with the demon, but she'd also worked out a way to extend that deal to every grown-up in the world, Maggie said, and Ivy gulped at the thought. The sky will crack, the earth will shake, when the dozen circle breaks. That bit is no thanks to you two, Jemima said, stuffing a slice of toast into her mouth. Yeah, all right, we feel bad as it is, thank you, Maggie said, sliding the toast rack away from Jemima just as she was reaching for another piece. You'd think she'd be nicer to us knowing we have the power to turn this pile into a maggot, Maggie whispered, and Ivy almost choked on her juice. But when the 13th moon is blue, two sisters, fierce and brave and true, will send the witch to death's embrace and to her final resting place, Amethyst stated, finishing the prophecy for them, and everyone fell silent. So, when is the next blue moon? Maggie asked, spreading a mountain of blackberry jam on the piece of thick white bread. A blue moon isn't actually a moon that's blue, said a voice from down the far end of the table. It came from behind one of Amethyst's spell books, a big leathery tome with gold embossed writing that said, "Phases of the moon for buffoons." Crystals jutted out from the leather in a circle around the title and glinted in the light. Eddie lifted his head above the book so that they could see his eyes. Just thought that might be of interest. He's right, Ivy said. Usually we only have 12 full moons in a year, but around every 2.5 years we have 13. That 13th full moon, the third out of the four in 3 months, is what we call a blue moon. Eddie looked up and gave Ivy the faintest hint of a smile before putting his nose back in the book. Ivy felt her face flush for the briefest moment, but managed to disguise it behind a glass of orange juice. So, the saying, once in a blue moon, actually means about once in every 2.5 years, Maggie asked. Technically, yes, Ivy confirmed. Okay, we've got the festival tonight, celebrating when the witch was defeated. I'm meant to be reading out one of the names. But it's not always on the exact day of the blue moon, is it? It should be, Ivy said, but grown-ups always pick the nearest Friday or Saturday to start so that it can all go on all weekend. It's tonight. Amethyst slapped a copy of the daily newspaper down on the table in between their crumb-strewn plates. The headline read, "Festival for the 12 begins tonight." Maggie picked up the paper and flipped to the page where her dad's story usually was. But instead it showed an advert for a toffee apple stall that would be opening that evening. Maggie's heart sank at the thought of her dad being alone in their home, probably confused by all her things that were strewn around. She wondered what he must be thinking and feeling, and sent a little thought up in the air and over to him, although he probably had no idea who she was. So we only have until the full moon tonight to come up with a plan to defeat a 300-year-old witch, led by her sister who can't even magic up breakfast? It was nice knowing y'all. Jemima laughed haughtily. That is it! Maggie stood up quickly. Her chair fell over behind her and hit the kitchen tiles with a whack. I've had about enough of you and your negativity once and for all. Let's see what this magic can really do, shall we? Maggie, no! Amethyst yelped, but Ivy got there first and jumped in front of Maggie's raised hands. Magic shouldn't be used for evil. Evil? Turning Jemima into the little snake she is, would be a public service. I don't think there's a single person here who wouldn't be thrilled to have a little less of her attitude. I know, and I agree, Ivy said, but Amethyst has trusted us with this magic, and I don't think she'd be too pleased to see us use it for something like this. Plus, neither of us knows how to do magic like that. And if it went horribly wrong and something happened to Jemima, you'd feel terrible. I know you would. Maggie leaned around Ivy and glared at Jemima. She looked suitably nervous, which Maggie decided was satisfaction enough. Fine, Maggie agreed, but everyone in the room breathed a sigh of relief. But next time you can do what you like, but if Jemima knows what's good for her, she won't be there next time. Jemima couldn't shut up. There won't be a next time because you both think you're talented witches, but you're hopeless. The magicians at my 6th birthday party was better than you 3 put together, she scoffed. Maggie turned a dangerous shade of tomato red, but before she could get any ideas about casting a spell herself, Amethyst grabbed an empty jam jar from the table and clicked her fingers. The sound was as loud as a firecracker. The lights in the kitchen began to flicker, but everyone was looking at Jemima. A red glow was traveling up her throat, and as it came out of her open mouth, everyone could see what looked like glowing words. Jemima's words. Words like creepy, rubbish, and hopeless jumped out. Some words were gold, like please and thank you, but there were very few of those. As Amethyst held out the jar, the words drifted towards it. No need to be alarmed, everyone. I just think it would be better if we had 24 hours of peace and quiet. This jar is slowly filling up with the words Jemima was going to say over the next day. Judging by how red the jar is, I think this spell can only be good for one thing. Negativity like this will only slow us down. When the last red word had slid into the jar, Amethyst slammed the lid tight and twisted it shut. The kitchen lights stopped flickering. Jemima scowled and opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She clutched her throat, and it looked like she was attempting to scream by the way her face contorted and turned purple, but no one could hear a thing. When you've learned how to use your words responsibly and talk to people with kindness, you can have this back. But until then, silence is golden. Unlike most of your words. Amethyst held up the jar and swirled it gently, like Maggie and Ivy had seen grown-ups do with a glass of wine. Slowly the golden words swirled into the others, and the jar started to look like it contained shimmering sunbeams. There was not a single glimpse of red anywhere to be seen. Amethyst tucked the glass jar away into one of the deep pockets of her purple velvet coat and smiled. That's better. That is the end of chapter 14. Come back tomorrow night and we will read chapter 15. We're making good way through this book. I'd say we're more than halfway done now. Can't wait to finish it with you. Sweetest of dreams.